Morning, guys. How's everybody doing? It is October 7th, Thursday, and that means that we have some NFL to talk about. NFL Week 5. It's crazy, man. Time is absolutely flying right now. How's everybody's Wednesday? I know that myself personally, I was very disappointed that the Dodgers pulled that thing out the way that they did in the end, but it is what it is, and we're not going to spend more than 5 minutes talking about baseball today because we have some football to cover, and normally it's hard for me to even get through all 16 games in an hour. So, yeah, wanted to see how the chat's doing this morning. What's going on, Will, hockey fan? What is good? What is good? Speaking of hockey, we're going to have that coming up really, really soon here. Keep an eye on an announcement for that today, actually. Good morning, everybody. Week 5 NFL time. I brought out the big guns this morning with the Starbucks double shot energy drink. I don't normally do this. I'm usually a black coffee type of guy, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and Josh is on vacation, which means that I got to power through and get this thing done. Christian, am I ready for tonight? Absolutely. Got a big game tonight. A big. We'll talk about this, but the primetime schedule this weekend is primo. So one of the best weekends of the year for sure, in accordance to that. Bacon, what's going on? Good morning. One more, and then we'll get going. Okay, with that being said, let's kick this thing off and talk about the primetime schedule this week because it is, like I said, one of the best to look forward to for the weekend. The LA Rams are taking on the Seattle Seahawks Thursday Night Football. That should be an insane NFC West matchup. We also have our first London game out of one of two of the season. The first one is going to be the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New York Jets. We'll talk about that one. You can see that on the screen here. It's the second game on the board. That is because it is at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday morning. So make sure to set your alarms if you guys are on the West Coast. That's going to be an early one for y'all. So Sunday night is like I've said the past couple of days, the best regular season game of the 2021 NFL season. That's going to be the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then finally, Monday night ends the week with a AFC showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts. So, four very, very good primetime games. Obviously, you kind of wish that the London game had a better situation, but the Jets and Falcons will have to do to get you guys prepped for Sunday afternoon football. Ramified, what's going on, dude? Basically, totally football all day. That is correct. Yep. So football all day. 2 Sundays in a row because we're gonna have the second London game is on the 17th. So the day after, or sorry, next week Saturday or Sunday. So back-to-back games in London on Sunday morning for the next 2 weeks. Gives us something to distract ourselves. Yeah, it definitely does. It helps me as well not tinker with things on Sunday morning. So that is definitely something to look forward to there. The London game is not on the main slate as far as I know. I don't think it is, and I don't think they've ever put it there. That would make things really difficult. Probably would be a full fade because those teams tend to they tend to kind of just not disappoint, but things are definitely different because they should be there right now. Anyway, we're getting a little bit sidetracked. We'll talk about that when we get to that game. Let's talk about Thursday night first. Thursday night football, Los Angeles Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, the Rams are -2.5 on the spread, and the total sits at 54.5, which again is probably what we're going to see as one of the highest on the board to start off the week, which is great. So, last two Thursday nights have been interesting with teams that just we know we had Carolina and we had the Texans, and then we had the Bengals and Jaguars last week. Now we get two powerhouse teams from the NFC West taking on each other. This is where we're going to start to see who the real frontrunners of the NFC West are. We know that the Cardinals are undefeated. They blew out the Rams last weekend. Rams coming in now, trying to get a hold of that second spot in the West because it's going to be pivotal for the rest of the season. One of these teams is going to make one of the teams, right now it's the Cardinals, are the division leaders. One of these teams, the Rams, the Seahawks, who beat the Niners last week, and San Francisco, are all going to be battling for that wild card slot at the moment. I think the Rams are still division favorites, but this is definitely not the best start for them after beating Tampa Bay in very convincing fashion 2 weeks ago. The Rams come in as -2.5 on the spread. This feels a little bit too low to me personally. That just tells me that if this was on a neutral site, that the Seahawks would not be the favorite here. It would be going towards the Rams. Obviously, if the Rams were home, they would be favored too. So right off the bat, I'm interested to see how the Seattle passing offense does against a Rams team who has kind of fallen back to earth a little bit in terms of their defensive statistics. Rams not really in elite categories anymore in both defending the run and the pass this year. They absolutely got lit up by the Cardinals last week. And, they stopped the Buccaneers, but again, we'll have to see. I think that the Seattle team can put up points here, indicating why the total is where it is. There are definitely weak spots in this secondary, and I think that Seattle's not really going to ground and pound against this team, especially with the way that Chris Carson's been being talked about in regards to possibly missing this game. He did not practice Tuesday, did Carson, so we'll see. This is not going to be pretty tonight. It's going to be a game time decision unless they come out with some news earlier. But I think Seattle's going to wait until the very, very last second to say anything about Chris Carson. If he were to miss, you have Alex Collins, who had a lot of carries last weekend. You have DJ Dallas on the bench as well. Rashad Penny is consistently hurt yet again this season, and he will not be suiting up tonight. So the Seattle Seahawks do have running backs that they can go to if Chris Carson were to miss. Obviously, it would be a huge blow if he didn't get to play at all. But honestly, I would rather go to Alex Collins, even if Chris Carson's banged up. So we'll see how it goes. Need to wait for that one a little bit later today. DK Metcalf should see a lot of Jalen Ramsey today, and Tyler Lockett should be able to kind of freely roam in the slot. That's kind of where the Seattle or the LA Rams have been beaten up this year, is in the slot. So we'll see how they develop and how they change things, and if DK Metcalf gets moved around pre-snap, he doesn't usually get to. But I think that Seattle will probably find a way if they can't get him the ball early. For right now, though, I'm leaning the LA Rams -2.5. I think you can feel comfortable betting that number. I do think it's going to be a close game throughout. However, I think the Rams are comfortable where they're at with Darrell Henderson right now and giving him the snaps and carries that he should be expecting, or what we expected to see from him coming back from that injury. So give me the Rams -2.5. I still think that Cooper Kupp has a great game. We might see a little bit more action out of Robert Woods tonight. And I know I'm going a little bit more in depth on this, but if you want to catch the DFS and the daily fantasy season-long aspect of all of this, check in on the stream in 2 hours. We're going to cover this game a lot more, over an hour and a half of information there. So again, come back to this exact spot 2 hours from now, and we'll talk about the LA Rams and Seattle Seahawks from a DFS perspective and for season long on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Right now, I'm taking the Rams -2. It's probably one of my best bets of the day. Get this thing now at 2.5 before it gets to 3. If you want to tease it and try to get plus money on the Rams spread, I wouldn't hate you for it. You could do that too. That's probably where the way that I would go, honestly. And we'll see how the Seattle offense kind of moves throughout the game. They come in with a game plan. You can see it all the time. They know which receivers they're going to key in on. Russell Wilson's very, very good at identifying that specific matchup early, whether it's going to be a Lockett game or a DK Metcalf game. And he will continue with that read until it does not work anymore, sometimes over-forcing it. Now, this is going to be an interesting spot because I think it's a Tyler Lockett game, but does he force the ball to DK Metcalf to get him going early against Jalen Ramsey? We'll see. So right now, the best thing for me to do is to focus on the Rams at -2.5. So that's what we're going to do here, and we're going to move forward. The New York Jets, like I said, play the Atlanta Falcons in London on Sunday morning. Again, this game is at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The Falcons right now are getting the -3. I don't really know why they're getting minus money. I think that the Jets showed up pretty big last week and beat the Titans. Atlanta gave up a huge lead to Washington and blew that game late in Atlanta fashion. So -3, it's not really home field advantage. I guess maybe they're 3-point favorites on a neutral site. I wouldn't buy it so much. I'm interested to see why it's -3. So I don't know. For me though, most London games I totally stay away from. We'll probably put some player props in here for the single game showdown slate. I don't love talking about it. I can give you some specifics on what I think is going to happen, but I don't love betting any numbers on neutral site games, especially when the two teams are unreliable at best. So 46 is the total here, and the New York Jets are coming in hot, man. They're coming in off a really, really good win. And I know it was against a team that was already down and beaten down in the Tennessee Titans, and that should not be a reason to not celebrate a win. I did not think the Jets were going to have a win until late in the year, when other teams were resting their players and things like that. Um, I'm staying away, but I'll just tell you guys that how I think this one's going to go. I think Atlanta gets out to a lead early. We saw what Tennessee was able to do on the ground. I know that's Derrick Henry. Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson are totally different, not even close to what Derrick Henry can bring to the table. But I do think Atlanta tries to establish the run early because that's something they did not do last week against Washington. And I do think that they can get it going a little bit here. I'm not saying that Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson are good plays, although I do think that it's hard to ignore what Patterson is doing as much as we all think it's disgusting and gross. And he shouldn't be doing it, but he is. And Matt Ryan is just finding this guy, and, and the scheme seems to be working for what Patterson brings to the table. So it's hard to ignore that. I think that's part of the reason why the offense has been able to move the ball the way that they have. And Calvin Ridley, if there's any game for him to get right, this would be the spot in getting him going. He hasn't looked completely terrible outside of that first week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Uh, Matt Ryan is always really, really consistent through 3 quarters, but then he always seems to kind of fumble around in the fourth quarter, as does the rest of this offense, seen on Sunday as well as the previous 4 weeks of the season. Again, that's one of the reasons why I hate betting on any of these games, especially the fact that it's in London takes me completely off of it. But there are definitely some interesting things to talk about in terms of the DFS side of things, right? If I had to lean one way on any of this, it would be going the under of 46 in London. So, can Pitts clear up the London fog? We'll see. Zach Wilson needs all the confidence he can get. Yeah, I mean, he did, and he has it right now. So, what better way to come into a game where maybe this isn't as, I don't know. Do you guys think that a road game in Atlanta is scarier than a road game in London? Where do people even know who Zach Wilson is in London? I'm sure they do, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Um, for me, this probably will be a sold out crowd. The only way the NFL would even clear this is if it was sold out. So we'll see if they can step up to the bright lights. I know that maybe it could take some adjustment. I don't think Matt Ryan has played in London yet. Maybe he has. If Czech can help me out on that, I would greatly appreciate it. But I know that Zach Wilson definitely has not. And so they should be there right now. I think that they landed yesterday, if I were correct there. But they try to get there at least 3 or 4 days early to clear the jet lag and things like that, and do a bunch of press stuff the day before. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They didn't get a full week of practice in like they normally would have. That's the detriment to London type games. And the Falcons losing a home game to go play overseas is certainly not ideal for the franchise in general. Yeah, so again, we're talking sports betting here. The only thing that I would take would be the under 46, just because teams usually start out really, really slow in London for a lot of different reasons, and some of those reasons were the things that I said, like the just the non-week of practice, the momentum they're coming into the game with, just the different preparation that it takes to be overseas, the jet lag, all that stuff is different, and you know, honestly, sleeping in a different bed, not in your own home, is something that is definitely going to affect this game. So under a 46 is what I am going to do here. And yeah, oh, Matty Ice played there in 2014. All right, that's fine. It's been a while, right? 7 years. We'll see if he can do it again. But right now, I'm taking under 46. Okay, first game of the actual card is Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucks are -10, and the total here is 48. First thing that stands out to me, total looks a little bit high. I don't think Miami obviously has any of the weapons or capabilities to compete with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. Should be a spot where you can probably tease this Tampa Bay team and get them at -6 or 7. Right now, like I said, double-digit points is always really hard for me to consider. But this year, I've been completely wrong on trying to fade those kind of spots. As the last couple of weeks, we've seen some pretty impressive double-digit teams cover. Most notably, the Buffalo Bills last week covered -40. So if you were to tease them above -20, congratulations, you won a lot of money. Tampa Bay, obviously their biggest weakness is their secondary right now, and Miami, one of their weaknesses is their offense, especially their offensive line. This is going to be the biggest defensive line offensive line matchup of the week. Miami's offensive line bottom 5, Tampa Bay's defensive line top 5, including one of the best run defenses in the league. Gaskin's going to be stopped. Malcolm Brown can't do anything. Will Fuller is back on the injury report. He will not be playing in this game. So Jacoby Brissett has Mike Gesicki. He has Devontae Parker, and he has Jalen Waddle. Also note that Jakeem Grant got traded to the Chicago Bears this week, so he will not be playing in this game. He wasn't really being used anyway, so not too much of a factor there. The Dolphins could get things going through the air when they have to. However, I think it's going to be mostly in garbage time, which is kind of why I think that the Dolphins have a chance to backdoor cover here. Again, I'm probably just going to stay away from it, but if I had to choose a side, it would be Tampa Bay -10. I think Leonard Fournette's in a fantastic spot. He's a home favorite here. You guys already know his DFS price, so I'm very bullish on Leonard Fournette. Need to keep an eye on Gio Bernard news, as he's still on the injury report here. But if he sits for whatever reason, I think Fournette is a fantastic option. We also know that Antonio Brown's going to be back. He's going to have all his weapons outside of Gronkowski and Scotty Miller. So he should be good to go. Should be another statement win for Tom Brady. And I think Tampa Bay should take this one very, very easily. So give me the -10 here. If you want to tease that, you can, to get maybe under -6 or -7. Not touching that total because, honestly, I don't really want to rely on Miami for anything in this game. All right. Next game we have is the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are -3.5 home favorites. The total sits at 45, so a little bit lower than both Josh and I thought. We had this conversation on Monday, I believe, or maybe it was Tuesday. I don't know. The days all blend together now. So Philadelphia coming in here after a tough loss against the Chiefs. They've been able to put up points in garbage time, and that's the key thing that I want to focus in on here. Do I think that the Carolina Panthers force that to happen, where they go to garbage time against the Eagles? I don't think so, but this is definitely, for me, it's more evenly matched than the Panthers-Cowboys game was, and I know that's going to hurt some feelings, but Carolina Panthers and Philadelphia Eagles should be a very, very good game to watch. It's probably one of the games that I want to target in the early window as far as the DFS thing goes. But right now, I'm going to side with the Panthers because I like what the offense is doing. I don't think anybody can stop DJ Moore. And I think Sam Darnold has just proven that he loves this system, he loves this team, and he loves these weapons. And he has the biggest thing for Darnold, and the thing we've always been missing outside of the Gase thing, is just confidence, right? Like confidence, not turning the ball over, and everything else kind of bleeds together and kind of seamlessly helps him be able to play at a higher level than we've ever seen him play. And I think that rolling in, I know they lost last week, but he should feel good about what they were able to do during the game. Now, Carolina, the offense is going to continue to get better. They're going to find ways to get Robbie Anderson involved. They're going to get Christian McCaffrey back eventually. And the bigger thing here is this is not going to take place this week, I don't think, because I don't know if there's enough time. But the addition of Stephon Gilmore should greatly induce the confidence of Darnold on the offensive side of the ball. The Panthers defense should be able to take the other offense off of the field, and the Carolina Panthers should be able to hold on to the ball and maintain time of possession. It's a great boost for the offense when you think about it. The addition of Gilmore certainly helps the entire team's ceiling. So I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers minus 3.5. I know Gilmore's probably not going to play that much this week, if at all, but the addition of everything for Carolina just seems to be trending upward every single week, right? I know that they took a loss last week, but again, I don't view it as a complete loss outside of a statistic. I think that Carolina is going to learn. They're going to make steps, baby steps, and get better every single week. And like Josh and I were saying, we were waiting. This is an above average defense right now. Maybe they were playing a little bit over their head, but I think that they're taking that step into a top 10, even like maybe an elite type of defensive thing if their guys stay healthy. So I don't know. There's a lot of players on this team that have a lot of grit and are very, very smart IQ football players. And they showed it last week against Dallas in some fashion, even with the powerhouse offense that they were going up against. So give me the Panthers minus 3.5. I think that Jalen Hurts has his work cut off for him once again. And the fact that they're trying to figure things out at running back right now is certainly a little bit scary on that front. So, yeah, I think that I'm going to take the Panthers here, and I do think the game should stay close. So if you want to tease the Panthers down to -1 or maybe even plus money if you can get there, I think that would be the way to go. Okay, let's move on and go to the New Orleans Saints and Washington football team. John, thank you for the Tier 1 sub. Desert Zombie, yep, he did stop seeing ghosts. As of right now, Sam Darnold leads the league in rushing touchdowns, which is probably the only time you're going to be able to say that, but if he gets in the end zone twice this week, might be a different story. The New Orleans Saints are 1 point favorites here on the road against the Washington football team. This total stands at 44.5 points. This is gross. This is probably one of the grossest games on the slate. So I'll probably be staying far away from it. I don't want to trust the Saints defense right now after they lost in overtime to the New York Giants of all teams. Not a fan of what they've been doing offensively either. They desperately need Michael Thomas back, and there's really no timeline for when that's going to happen. Marquez Callaway is only going to be able to help this team so much, especially with Deontay Harris is there, and Tony Jones is now hurt for the Saints backfield. So they have one weapon. It's Alvin Kamara and possibly Taysom Hill. So the main thing for me that I struggle to get behind anything with New Orleans is I just don't know what to expect from them now because they're not throwing the ball to Alvin Kamara this year. And we saw that last week. We highlighted it yesterday. 0 targets last week, but he had 26 rushing attempts. So they're using him like they never let Latavius Murray go, which makes 0 sense to me. They've become one-dimensional, and I think that Washington is definitely susceptible right now. Can't talk, guys. They're definitely susceptible right now to everything, which I'm not going to back Washington. I know I said last week if there was a game that they were going to show up for the defensive side of the ball, it was going to be against Atlanta. They failed to do that, and right now I just can't trust Washington's defense whatsoever. This is just a gross game from a number standpoint in terms of sports betting. It seems like kind of a pointless way to sweat your Sunday afternoon. I'd rather get better spots from better teams. I think that the Saints by the end of the weekend should be closer to -2. So if you want to jump on this now, you can feel free to do so. I don't know. Saints losing to one of the worst teams in the NFL equals terrible. Yeah, that was a really, really rough game for them. They're going to want that one back in a month when they start to get rolling here. I just don't know if they have an identity on offense anymore. Like they went from this passing juggernaut with Breeze to then like when Breeze got older, they so if you guys remember, like most of you were watching the Saints in 2009 through 12, where the defense was the worst defense in the league, and they used Drew Brees and his variety of pass catchers to get them back into shootout games, and then they turned into this, as Brees got older, they turned into this dink and dunk type of offense with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Had Brandon Cooks in the mix at some points of that as well. And then they just kind of, right now, they don't know what they're doing. And I think this is a transition year for them. I was hoping that they would just put Jameis Winston in and throw the ball, but again, they don't have the weapons to do it. Like they gave away Emmanuel Sanders, Michael Thomas, had a bunch of beef with them early in the season. Kamara was the dude that they could always rely on, but they're not using any of those guys, and all of that stuff went away. And now Jameis Winston is forced to throw to guys like Callaway, who is talented, but they don't have anybody else on the team. So if they have to rush Kamara 25 times a game in order to score points and rely on Taysom Hill inside the 10-yard line to make out like otherworldly plays, then I'm not going to back this team at all. And they're only getting 1 point in the spot to Washington, so I'm completely off of it. Bacon, you are screaming the exact words that I'm screaming, but I don't think that they're going to throw the ball to Alvin Kamara in this spot. And if they do, it's going to be what they've done all season: 4 to 5 targets with a possibility of 6. I just can't. I don't know. I can't get behind it. Pre-Michael Thomas era when they had Colston and Graham. Yep, Jimmy Graham was an absolute stud in that time frame. Cooks wasn't too bad himself either. So yeah, I would much rather have that Saints team than this one right now. So right now I'm staying away from it altogether. If you want to get cute, throw a little bit of extra money here. If you have any rooting interest, I guess Saints -1 is probably the only thing I can get behind. Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk about this one briefly because I think it's pretty straightforward. Right now, we don't know what's happening with this game. And there's only really one reason for that, and it's the health of the Tennessee wide receivers. So right now, I think that this is a lot of points to give Tennessee, just based on what they looked like against the Jets last week. This game is in Jacksonville. It is a division matchup, too, which, again, a little bit different, but the Jaguars, honestly, if there's any team that I can't back right now, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. For those of you who have been following the Urban Meyer saga, they tweeted the Jacksonville Jaguars team, like somebody posted to Twitter and the end of their practice chant, and they all chanted "grind," which is a direct replication of what Urban Meyer did earlier this weekend. So this team just does not trust their coach and does not have their coach's back, and it's a locker room against basically everybody. So it's only a matter of time before things start to implode here. I'm not going to back the Jacksonville Jaguars, but at the same time, we can't back Tennessee until we know what the status is for A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I think A.J. Brown's out. I think Julio could play. And hopefully Derrick Henry gets some kind of support because it's not looking great right now for this team. The total seems very, very high. I know that Tennessee's defense is bad, and so is Jacksonville's, but man, I don't know how many points these guys are actually going to be able to put up. It just sounds like a gross game. So for me, we don't know the news yet. I'm staying away from it. If you have a lean, I don't know, Tennessee is fine if you want to tease that, but I'm not going to get behind it whatsoever. Notice I've said a lot of times that I don't have a lean, you can tease it. It doesn't make me feel any more confident about the play. The Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, the Vikings are -9.5 point favorites. The game total sits at 49.5. The first thing that stands out to me is this number of 9.5. It seems very, very high. I think that, yes, the Bears were able to establish the run last week against Detroit. But do we really think that the Vikings are 9.5 point favorites here? I don't know. For me, I know that Green Bay was -11.5, -12 at home too. So obviously Detroit does not really play well anywhere, but they don't play especially well on the road either. So Minnesota, if we can kind of forget about what happened last week, I do think that they'll be able to establish the run here. If they get Dalvin Cook involved, which they should, he should be able to put up 18 and 22 rush attempts and actually move the ball for the first time this season. So I think that Minnesota is in a good spot here. Again, 9.5 seems kind of high. I would probably try to tease that down to -6 so you get that touchdown coverage in there. The over of 49.5 is very intriguing because I do think that Minnesota can put up possibly 30 points in this spot. And if their defense allows Detroit to come back in the game, we could see some fireworks on both sides of the ball. So I like the over of 49.5. And I also like the I like the Minnesota side here. If you can tease it to like -6 or -7, you could tease, parlay tease the over and the Vikings spread, so you get a little bit of action on both sides. Maybe you can get that down to -7 and maybe 46. That would be kind of the way that I would approach it. But 9.5 seems like a lot of points for this defense right now. Survivor pick, yep. I think that if you want to use the Vikings, this would be a good chance to do that in a survivor type of situation. The Denver Broncos taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This game is the grossest game on this Week 5 card. It is a 1 point spread going in the Steelers' direction. The total sits at 40, and there's a few reasons why the total is where it is. Both quarterbacks are hurt in some capacity. Teddy Bridgewater is dealing with a concussion. He has not been cleared yet to start for this game. That's going to be a decision they make soon. And the backup in this situation would be Drew Lock. He could take on the Pittsburgh defense, who has not looked up to their standards so far this season. The Steelers are dealing with a Big Ben injury. He has a hip problem right now. Oh, it's so gross. I think that there are a lot of ways that you can go. I'd be most interested in seeing what the prop is for receptions for Najee Harris. That would be the first thing that I would look at. We've seen 3 times this year where the Steelers have been playing from behind. The one game that they weren't was the Buffalo Bills, which was Najee Harris's first game. So kind of knocked that one out the window. But the other 3 games, Najee Harris has gone off in the reception category. The targets for Big Ben just seems to be a stars aligning type situation for him. They're down. They are trying to go up tempo to try to come back in the game. The offensive line for Pittsburgh's bad. Ben Roethlisberger can't make fast reads anymore, so he just dumps it off to his first option, which should be Harris, 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, and then just let Najee do the work that he was drafted to do. So I think that you can look at Najee Harris receiving props for the rest of the season. I do think this is the way that they're going to approach their offense. I do think that hopefully Chase Claypool comes back and they're able to actually spread the ball out a little bit more. But when Claypool's gone, he can't stretch the field. And I know that Deontay Johnson's going to try to do his best, but they just couldn't do anything against that Packers secondary last week. So Denver's defense, and especially their secondary, is very, very good. I think there's going to be a lot of checkdowns to Najee, and this game is just going to be gross as a whole. I will not be touching it. If Drew Lock plays, there's a real consideration that I will go under 40 here. We'll see, but right now I'm staying completely away. It's rough. Big Ben has an old age problem. Time for Ben to retire. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page there, guys. I think we all are. Anyway, let's move on and talk about a game that I think is definitely interesting for sports betting as well as DFS. It's the Green Bay Packers against the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, the Packers are only 3-point favorites, guys, on the road, and the total sits at 52. I'm not too sure why they would think that on a neutral site that these teams would be a pick 'em. That doesn't really make sense to me. Are they giving Cincinnati a lot more credit? Possibly. But at the same time, the Packers aren't down on offensive weapons at all outside of MVS. And on defense, they are still not sure if they want to roll Jair Alexander out. I would assume he's not going to play this week. He's got a shoulder issue. And why waste that in this spot when you're trying to play for the long term of the season? The Packers did sign Jalen Smith this week. I don't think he'll play very much, if at all. So it's not a factor for this conversation. They also signed Rasul Douglas to the secondary, which I saw a classic meme yesterday, and it had, everybody was kind of trying to say that the Packers were front runners for Stephon Gilmore, but it turns out that obviously he never made the call to Devontae Adams. Going to be very interesting to see what happens with all of this stuff because the Packers are never a team that makes in-season moves. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with Jalen Smith. We'll see if he turns things around. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But the GIF was like the Pawn Stars gift. So it says, the Packers fans, we want Stephon Gilmore, and then Brian Gutekunst asking, as the Pawn Stars guy says, best I could do is Rasul Douglas. So that is exactly how that situation went yesterday. And I'm not upset because I did not think that the Packers had a chance to even compete with getting Stephon Gilmore, as we don't have any cap space. So I don't know. It is what it is. I think that Carolina had an awesome acquisition there, and he should be able to prove himself in that defense and take them to the next level. Cece's dad says Cobb was effective. Can he be again? Yeah, I think that he can. So with MVS out, that basically takes away their deep threat, right? So what they do instead of that is they put Alan Lazard and Devontae Adams both on opposite sides of each other to extend the field. It doesn't work in the same way that it normally does because Adams is the guy that usually moves in that slot to kind of bait the defenders and makes everything kind of crazy from an offensive standpoint. When they put Cobb in there, he's used to being that guy in the past. Is he as athletic as he used to be and game changing? No, but he was able to. He is a guy that Rodgers looks to and has the history of doing things in that kind of fashion. So I don't think we see the end of Randall Cobb. However, it's definitely you can't rely on even one touchdown. Nonetheless, two. That was the first time he's gone multiple touchdowns since I think 2017 or something like that. So I don't think that he's going to be like the X factor by any means, but I do think that this Packers offense is still a real threat to this Bengals defense, who has looked decent this year. Andre.com, thank you for the sub, dude. What's going on? Desert Zombie says Mixon is hurt. They think that Joe Burrow must get several touchdowns in him. Yeah, so the thing for me, like the game total is at 52, which the under seems like the right lean here. But if this is a -3 spread, like they're thinking this thing is going to be like 27-24, and that's even shooting the under. So, do we think the Bengals are going to put up 24 points on the Packers defense here? I just can't get behind that necessarily. So, if they do, the Packers have the ability to score 30, and I don't know. I think that I'm taking the Packers -3. If you want to wait a little bit longer, you might be able to get them at -2.5, but don't wait too long because I think Joe Mixon is going to be ruled out on Friday, which would then take this line the other way completely. I don't think that this BetOnline spread indicates that Mixon is not playing. I think that they think that he has a shot, which, if we're splitting hairs here, I really think it's trending towards the doubtful sign, if not completely out already. Not too good of practice times for Mixon this week, but again, it's Thursday. We'll see what happens with it. Right now, I take the Green Bay Packers -3. I would consider the under 52 as well. Need to know also if T. Higgins is going to be able to play after that shoulder injury cost him 2 weeks. Do I ever check out Tom Grossi? I do. Yep, he's a funny dude. So I suggest to you, if you want some humor in your life, to go check that out on YouTube. New England Patriots going up against the Houston Texans. We'll keep this one short and sweet here. The defense played very well against Tampa Bay. They had a very good game plan. That's kind of how I expect Belichick's defenses to work. And now they get a Texans team who put up 0 points last week against Buffalo. This game is in Houston, so I guess if you want to give some sort of credit there, Houston only being a single-digit underdog is definitely surprising. Game total sits at 39.5. I will not be touching that because then you have to rely on the Houston Texans to score points. And I don't want to bet the New England Patriots -9 on the road, even though I do think it's a great spot for them. So I'm staying away completely from this game. Great DFS spot, though. We'll talk about that a little bit later this week. Chicago Bears against the Las Vegas Raiders. It is the beginning of the afternoon slate. The Chicago Bears are coming in as the underdogs here. The Raiders coming in at -5.5 as the home favorite. 44 is the game total. Bears announced yesterday that Justin Fields is going to be the QB1 moving forward for the remainder of the 2021 season, unless Matt Nagy decides to troll and tell us otherwise. I'm surprised that he came out with the news as he did on that Wednesday, but it just tells me that he's trying to instill a little bit of confidence in his quarterback that just came out with his first NFL win. Give him a full week of preparation, give him the starting job and the confidence to be able to actually kind of make this thing a real thing and keep the wheels kind of turning for this Bears team as they beat Detroit last week. Chicago Bears are now 2-2, and they get a Raiders team who lost well, not a heartbreaker, but I mean they have done very well in second halves of games. If you guys haven't noticed, they might not start out hot, but they really pile it on. We saw them do that against the Ravens. We saw them do that against the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 weeks ago, and then we saw them do it last week and just a couple days ago against the Chargers. So I think this Raiders team is for real. They start out really slow, but they come back in second halves with fury. So I don't know. It kind of seems like a spot where you are sweating the initial first half of games. So I would not take the first half line. I think that the Raiders will make this thing a close game in the first half and then really pile it on in the second half at home. Vegas is a very tough place to play. We haven't seen that much with crowds involved, but when the crowd is there, it's very hard for an offense coming in as an underdog to try to perform at the best of their abilities. Justin Fields, while they got the win, it was only really because of David Montgomery, who was missing this game and out for the next month with that injury. So they're going to have Damian Williams, who also sustained a thigh bruise earlier this week. And I don't know, I just can't trust the Bears offense necessarily. I think DFS is a different story, so don't get me mixed up here. But I don't really want to rely on this team to be within a touchdown of this Raiders team, who we know, we already kind of expect what's going to happen with this Raiders squad. They're going to be able to force it down the field. They have deep weapons. Ruggs is going to connect on something eventually here. Excuse me. Ruggs is going to be able to connect on something eventually here. Darren Waller always in play. Josh Jacobs, for what he went through, actually played a lot of snaps last week and has a lot to do with Peyton Barber's turf toe injury, who's going to be sidelined for several weeks. So it should be the Josh Jacobs role. Again, Kenyon Drake out of the backfield. I don't know. I think Las Vegas just has the better pieces on offense. So I'm going to take the Raiders. And I think that I can say in confidence that I can take the Raiders -5.5 right now. I think that this game could drop to -5 for the Vegas team, which is why I think that kind of waiting a little bit and seeing if there's any steam coming in on Chicago might be a beneficial way to go. So give me the Raiders -5.5. I would like to. This is more of me betting on the Raiders at home with that crowd, more so than like my confidence in Fields to be able to do anything. So give me the Raiders -5.5. Let's keep talking. We got some really good games coming up here to discuss, and we have about 15 minutes to get through 5 of them. So without further ado, the Cleveland Browns take on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are -1 home favorites at SoFi. The total of 46.5 is definitely interesting for many reasons, and I will just say that I think this is Justin Herbert's toughest test from a D-line to O-line type of performance. The Cleveland Browns defensive line is top 5 in the league. The Chargers offensive line, while they made adjustments and really tried to bolster this thing in the offseason, was a little bit shaky the last couple of weeks. They've had a lot of penalties. Some of those guys aren't staying healthy. We'll see how they can manage against this Browns defensive line that has just tortured quarterbacks all year. We saw it with Cousins. We saw it with Fields. We even saw it with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to go. Right now, all of my confidence is on the LA Chargers -1 and the under of 46.5. And there's several reasons why. So I like 2 bets in this game. These are some of my strongest bets of the week. LA Chargers -1, under of 46.5. The under has hit in all Chargers games this season. They are 4-0 to the under, and there's one major reason for that. It's Brandon Staley's defensive game plan against the opposing quarterback. We saw it. We saw Derek Carr struggle. We saw the entire Raiders offense struggle on Monday. They got nothing going until they were forced to. They were down by 3 scores, and they were forced to pass the rest of the game. Chargers still easily covered that one, -3. They did the same thing to Patrick Mahomes. They did the same thing to Dak Prescott. Both of those offenses are way better than the Cleveland Browns, who are without Jarvis Landry. Baker Mayfield is also playing with a torn labrum, as reported this morning. So he's playing through the season with a torn labrum. Not a good look for the Browns. I kind of was rooting for them, obviously, as AFC North contenders, but if they're going to be dealing with injuries right out the gate here, it's tough for me to back them in this spot, especially with that diagnosis. this early in the week. It'd be something if I feel like they could have just kind of buried that lead for a little while, but they decided not to. So give me the Chargers -1. Give me the under of 46.5. I think Cleveland, um, they're going to have to run the ball and control time of possession in order to match up with this Chargers powerhouse offense. I just don't think they can do that. And if the Cleveland Browns are forced to be pass heavy, I just don't think that they stand a chance in this game. So give me LA -1, under 46. New York Giants going up against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are -7.5. Home favorites. Over under sits at 52.5. One thing that we've preached all season: hammer all of the Cowboys overs. This over of 52.5 is too low. Dallas should be able to put up 35 points here, and I think the Giants have the capability to put up about 20. So I do think that this game shoots over. I like the Cowboys -7.5, getting plus money on that right now. This is probably going to fall to -7. Wouldn't be surprised if it even fell to -6.5. I think that BetOnline is giving a lot of credit, and so is the public, to this Giants offense. They probably are without Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton again this week, and I just don't think that they have the weapons to match up against Dallas right now. The Cowboys have actually been a lot better against the run too than in recent years, so if they can stop Saquon Barkley, who had a massive performance against the Saints, we'll see how that goes. But at the same time, I think Saquon is able to have his way a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit of a mix and match here. I think this game is a little bit closer than people expect it to be, which is why I like the over. But I do think Dallas covers the touchdown. Glad to see no sophomore slump from Herbert. Yeah, I mean, at least right now, they're doing everything right with Herbert. So I like the weapons around him. I like the game. I like the game plan against the opposing quarterbacks. So I like the Chargers -1, under 46. I also like the Dallas team. If you can wait until it gets to -7, I would wait for that. Over 52.5 also works for me. San Francisco 49ers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, the Cardinals are -5.5 point home favorites. The game total sits at 49.5 points. The bigger thing for me, and again, I don't really want to lean either way, but I'm taking Arizona -5.5 until we see what happens with the 49ers quarterback situation. We also don't know who's starting the running back for them this week. Again, Elijah Mitchell on the injury report still has missed the last 2 weeks. They do have Sermon there and a bunch of other guys, but I think that they're just waiting for Jeff Wilson to come back and be that focal point of the offense. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. If Trey Lance is in, I have no confidence in the 49ers for this spot from a sports betting perspective. For DFS, different story. But if you get a first start for a rookie QB on the road against the divisional opponent, I'm taking the divisional opponent all day. So Cardinals right now -5.5 for me. If Jimmy G's banged up whatsoever, I still go Cardinals. I'm not touching the total because you have to rely on both teams for that. So give me Arizona -5.5 right now, coming off that huge win against the LA Rams. Okay, so we have two bangers of a game left to go. The Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs for Sunday Night Football. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are -3 at home, coming off of a clutch victory after losing two in a row to Philly. So, game total sits at 56.5. The Buffalo Bills this season have kind of been able to meander their way through, and they've had a pretty easy start to their season. Now, you take away the blunders in the week one against Pittsburgh, really don't even know what that was at this point. Seeing what they've been able to do on offense since then, they've shut out two teams right now on the road. I think they were in Miami and in Houston, and scored 70 combined points against those teams while giving up 0. So the Bills obviously are a good team. This should be an AFC rematch for the conference, and right now, though, I have to lean with the Chiefs. And there's a few reasons why. The first one is certainly because of the number and where that's going. I think that there's a real shot that people back the Buffalo Bills really hard here. And the Chiefs, playing at home, have the home field advantage. They're coming off a good win. They seem to be hitting their stride again. I'm not worried about the Chiefs whatsoever. This is going to be a great game. Should come down to the final possession. If you can wait to see if you can get -2.5 on the Chiefs, I think that's the way to go, and that's where you should hit it. That should be coming soon. You might see some steam on it Saturday, but the massive bets from the public are going to start coming in on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. So if you can wait a little bit, if you want to get -3 on them right now, go for it. But I think that you can hit it again on Saturday or Sunday morning. That's something I like to do quite a bit, just so you guys are aware. I normally, if I like a bet, I usually hit it at several times of the week. So Kansas City, good opportunity to get them right now, and then -2.5 when it gets closer to kickoff. The over seems like a good spot to hit, right? I think that the over 56.5 seems like a good thing. People are going to be all over that number, so I would not be shocked to see that thing go over 57, 58 by the time we hit Sunday night. I have nothing else to say other than if you want, if you have interest in playing DFS for this game specifically, that will be my job, and you can get all of my content, which includes a detailed article, betting trends, betting props and picks via BetOnline.ag. Also, a DraftKings Showdown player pool and strategy along with that, as well as a FanDuel single game lineup and bonus GPP. So, if you want action on this game and you don't want to sports bet it, come over to rotoradar.net and we will certainly help you out with this game because it's going to be a fun one to watch. And I suggest that you guys clear your Sunday night calendars right now, cancel all your plans, and watch this game. Indianapolis Colts taking on the Baltimore Ravens will finalize the Week 5 slate. Right now, Baltimore is -7 at home, and the under sits at 46 here. Normally, we'd be talking about these teams' defenses, and they've both taken a step back this season due to injury and just regression at some point. Like the Colts defense was playing a little bit above their skill set last year. They've come back down to earth a little bit. Now, both teams are very, very injured. We also saw the Baltimore Ravens use Latavius Murray as their RB1 last week against Denver. Came out with a big win there. This is a weird spot. I think it's going to be fun to watch as a fan. It's also going to be very, very tilting as a sports bettor and DFS player to pick and choose who you want in this game. Normally, we don't want the running backs facing the Baltimore defense. However, Jonathan Taylor is probably the best offensive weapon on that Colts squad. So yeah, I mean, it's a pick and choose spot, right? I think that you can definitely exploit the Lamar Jackson, Hollywood Browns situation. Marquise Brown, if he did not drop those 2 touchdowns against the Lions, we would be talking about him being a top 15 wide receiver this season. He's been very, very consistent. He's been getting in the end zone. I know it sounds gross, but he's really pouring it on the last year and a half in terms of fantasy points. So I'm on the side of leaning the Ravens here. I kind of want to wait to see what happens with their defensive situation. Also, I think at this point, total goes down a little bit. Should be hitting 45, and that probably gets down to -6.5, -6 for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, chat, we can hang out. I actually did this fairly fast, and we actually didn't roll over and miss any times on these last games. So I think I caught every single game this week, and we should be chilling. Yep, all games have been accounted for. So if you guys have any conversations for me, I would feel free to let's talk about some stuff for the next 5 minutes, and then we can get out of here. Clutch win and Philly don't belong in the same sentence. Don't tell Kai I said that. Nice. Philly cheesesteaks belong in the same sentiment. Any season-long buy low targets. Okay, I can do this in a couple ways, and I will go individually as well as teams because I think it's important. Because you can use the same argument for buy low targets when you're talking about sports betting as well. I think a team to start to gain some steam on here could be the Minnesota Vikings. This is a nice buy low spot for them after they lost to Cleveland last week. They now get a Lions defense, and they should be able to put some points up on the board against them as well as in some future weeks. They're going to be battling with the Bears for that second spot in the division. And they possibly have a chance to make the playoffs again. So Minnesota Vikings, if they can stay healthy, are an excellent buy low spot. I would say the Chargers, but they're not in a buy low spot. They're 3-1. So buy lows, buy lows, buy lows. I mean, New England, you can buy low on them here. I think that they obviously nobody's like denying that they're going to win against the Texans, but I think this is a nice spot after losing to Tampa to kind of get things going for them again. We'll see if Mac Jones can carry that performance on. Also, another really, really buy low spot would be Kansas City. I know that everybody's like, it's weird, right? Like, we think that, yes, they're last place in the AFC West, but they still have not played up to their potential yet, and they've faced a couple really, really good game plans. Now they're coming in at what should be the most competitive game of the regular season. I think it's going to be a Sunday night fireworks show. So yeah, give me the buy low on the Chiefs. I think that people are certainly uh, underestimating this team still. Just tuning in, we getting into tonight's game later today, or did I miss it? Yep, we will be. We're coming back here on stream in 2 hours to discuss the FanDuel single game and DraftKings showdown slate for the LA Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be a fun one to do. Is Khalif Raymond season long relevant? He is not. He is not. He scored last week, which was nice, but he is not season long viable. He would be a flex number two option at best if you have two flex spots. If you have one, I don't think he would make that list because I would say either you drafted really poorly or you can find somebody else better on the waiver wire. Okay, I'm gonna check prop bets here really quickly just to see if I can cash in on some action here. Let's do a sneak peek of tonight really quick. We got 2 minutes. Okay, passing touchdowns for this game. Stafford getting plus odds at 3 touchdowns, both getting plus odds at 3 touchdowns. Russell Wilson seems like I mean, it's not a lock by any means against the Rams ever, but that's interesting. Let's see what we got for receiving props because that's probably the juiciest thing to see. Cooper Cup looks like you got to pay through the nose to get him again, 90 plus yards. DK Metcalf, if you're looking at something similar, around 80. I want to see if they have Lockett odds where I want them. Yeah, 70 yards seems like a lot for Lockett, but again, I think that this is a solid spot for him to take advantage of some stuff. Robert Woods, haven't seen it yet. This kind of feels like the Robert Woods spot on paper. So, can he get to that 60-yard mark? It's very scary, but I feel like if you want, you can go that route. And then always taking a flyer on a Deshaun Jackson or a Van Jefferson is something I'm interested in. So that seems like a interesting way to go. All right. Chris Carson, man, they really aren't expecting him to play tonight. 40 yards to get plus money on him. I know it's the Rams defense, but still, that's not very many yards. Darrell Henderson, that's actually really juicy. Go ahead and bet that one, guys. Darrell Henderson, 68 plus yards on the ground. I'm going to be putting that in my article. There's your freebie for the day. Darrell Henderson, 68 plus yards in a spot where he should get 15 to 18 rush attempts. I think that Seattle's run defense is definitely suspect. So take advantage of that while you can. No more questions on the day today, so we're going to get out of here in the next 10 seconds or so. Thank you so much for hanging out today. This stream, again, brought to you by BetOnline.ag. They're our official partner for the 2021 NFL season. We went game by game, all 16 games, and covered some player props for the Thursday night football game. Thank you again so much for being our sponsors. We greatly appreciate it. Let's get out of here. Final notes for the day. We'll be going live at 1 o'clock Eastern time for the DFS edition of today's show, covering the FanDuel single game and DraftKings showdown for this Rams Seahawks matchup. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be an awesome primetime weekend, guys. Make sure that you're playing the single games as well as the main slate. We have a lot to discuss. We'll see you back here in 2 hours. As always, good morning and good skill.